Hey, good evening, guys. Hope everyone's doing okay. I know it takes some time for people to log on, so while I wait for a couple of minutes, no, a couple of seconds really, let me just check that I am live and it's working okay. Okay, so I'm live. Do we have sound? We have sound. Excellent. So if you come on live while I'm here, say live. If you watch this on replay, comment replay as well, so I know when you're catching it. And actually, can you let me know where you're watching from? That'd be really cool. It'd be good to keep track of where people are dialing in from. But I say dialing in, watching from. Yeah, that'd be really cool to have. But it's Wednesday again. Hope everyone's having a good week. I've got the sniffles today. Like that literally just came on today. So bear with me if I start sniffling halfway through or sneezing or whatever. I don't know what's going on, but we go ahead. So if it's your first time on here, welcome. So this is a Trust and Money TV show. My name is Trust Oluolu, and on here every Wednesday I come on live and I talk about money, I talk about budgeting, and the goal of this space is to create an environment where people can, feel free to share their experiences with money, and especially for women. That's the group of people that I look more to engage with and work with. Nothing against men, of course. Feel free to chime in. But I have maybe because this is episode 4. Right on the very first one, I sort of explained my rationale behind why the focus is on women, but men feel free to chime in there. So I'm going to jump straight in. I'm not going to wait anymore. So for this week, I've planned to talk about what makes some people's budgets work. So last week I talked about why budgets fail. And so I gave a few reasons there. So if you haven't seen that, I would suggest that maybe you take some time to watch it later on, because yes, this is sort of the flip side of that, talking about why they fail. And while I talk about some slightly different things today, but actually doing the opposite of some of the things from last week will contribute towards, making it work. So just something to throw in there for you to catch on later on. But today I want to keep it on the positive side. What is it that the people for whom it works, what do they do that sort of makes it work? And if any of this is useful, give it a like when you hear something that resonates with you. The final thing, just before I jump in as well, I've got to say, a lot of these things we probably either know or have heard before, but sometimes we forget. Like in the day-to-day, it's easy to forget. It's easy to get carried away. Sometimes it's just part of life, and it's good to get reminders. And that's part of what this page is for. Reminders to own our financial situations. Like really creating an environment where we have reminders to really hone in on what's happening with our personal finances and be the boss of it, basically. So I have 5 points that I've taken down here, and I'm going to run through them and sort of summarize at the end when we finish. So 5 things that people who really make their budget work, and what are some of the things that they do. So obviously the first thing is to have one. That's a given. You've got to have one in the first place for it to make it work. And if you don't know why you should have one, you need to speak to me ASAP. So what is it that makes it work? The first thing on my list is people that have their budget game down. They've got it sorted. Is that they are wise to what is them being sold something versus what is something they actually need. I'll tell you what I mean. So obviously businesses are there they have to make profit, right? They have to make profit to be in business. And so they are going to try and sell you stuff. And some of the times that is something that you actually need. And so it's of mutual benefit. They have something that you want. That's great. Now, people who are able to recognize when they're just being sold something that they don't actually need, like it's a marketing gimmick, and being able to recognize that for what it is, because you can't save money by spending money that you don't need. It's something that's been marketed as it's discounted, it's going to give you savings. Well, if you don't need that thing in the first place, that's not saving you money. And being able to recognize that, and so no, actually this is not something that I need, and focus on what is that you need. That's something that people who have their budget right, they can recognize that and put their money where they actually want it to be. I mean, it's crazy if you think about it. At least here in the UK, the amount of, let's use food for example, or clothes that go to waste because people are buying stuff that they don't need, lots of it, just because, you know, they're being sold stuff. And it's absolutely shameful, because there are parts of the world where, like, they don't have stuff like that, and it's not cool. It's not cool to have so much waste. And so being wise to that, that's one of the traits that people who got their budget down, that's something they have. Point number 2, people who have their budget on point, they have emergency funds, because they recognize that life, just because it's life, things come up. You know, car breaks down, boiler breaks down, stuff like that happens. They know it happens. And so they actually plan for it, so that when it does come, they're not knocked off course. They are prepared. They have something in place to cover that, so that their money plan doesn't go off course. Because there are 2 things to that. One of them being, of course, the instant, you know, yes, you've had to dip into money you haven't planned to spend, you didn't have that. But the second part of that, which I think is actually more sad, is that when something like that happens and you're thrown off course, it actually can knock your confidence in believing that you can actually do it. You're someone that can have your money planned, and that is a shame if that makes you sort of not want to try again. So for me, that's quite sad, actually. So people who have their budgets on point, they have emergency funds planned, knowing that stuff happens, so that when it does come, they're ready, they're good to go, they handle it without going off course completely. So that's the second point. Point number 3, people who have their budget on point, who have their money on point, they recognize the importance of planning also for self-care. Because if you watch my last video, as humans, and definitely here where we are, we're raised to treat ourselves. You know, we feel like we deserve things, we deserve to treat ourselves, and there's nothing wrong with that. You know, that's what it is, and that's where we are. But they actually plan for this and make that time. It doesn't necessarily have to be in a monetary sense, just something you do that is for you, because that takes the pressure off a bit, because life can be stressful, it can be quite high pressure. So they actually plan for that, and so avoid a situation of just going on rampage where you get so wound up and then you want to and just lose it, basically, and before you know it, it's like car down the drain, so much money spent. Whereas when it's planned, you know that, no, this is time that I'm treating myself. I've used something, for example, when I'm planning out my money for either the month or for the next few months, I plan my massage session. You know, don't judge me, that is something that I like. I plan that in the diary as much as I would plan anything else, because I know that that's something that I'm doing, not necessarily because it's a need, but I know how it feels afterwards. That is something that I'm doing for me. That's that self-care, and just takes a little bit of the pressure off feeling like I've got to treat myself and you know, losing control. That's just one example. It can be something else for you. It doesn't matter what it is. Whatever it is that makes you feel like, yes, I am looking after myself and I'm treating myself, just makes it less likely that you're going to go on a rampage and blow the card and, you know, yeah. Anyway, that was point number 3. Point number 4. Now, this is one that is a little bit of a controversial one. It's not for everyone, take from it what you can. If it doesn't apply, leave it. That's absolutely fine. So some of the people who have their money plan on point, they stay away from credit cards. And why is that? Because they know that for them, it just doesn't work for them. Now, that is not to say that it's the case for everybody. There's some people who can happily have a credit card, manage it well, and it's absolutely fine. But when people that have recognized that, no, it is a pain point for them, it's something that they can't quite trust themselves with it, they just stay away from it. So I give you an example. I had an ex-partner once, this is years ago, and he thought like a credit card was free money to spend, which is absolutely hilarious. Like, that is just a credit line. If you burn that thing, they're coming for you. And if you're anything like me, like, the thought of carrying that sort of debt, I can't sleep at night. And that's definitely not a way to have a good money plan. So if you're someone that you don't think you can trust yourself with it, it is okay to opt out. You don't have to have it, and recognizing the type of person you are and having things that are going to work with you and support you. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. Now, like I said, that is not to say they're an absolute no-no if you can manage it. A general rule of thumb, so if you can't pay for something twice over comfortably, then maybe think about whether you need to put it on there. If you can't afford it twice, it's worth considering whether it's worth doing. Now, if it's something that you're taking for business, something that you know that it's an investment into something that's important to you, maybe that's possible. But otherwise, if it's for things that don't really need it, or if the idea of even having one makes it a dangerous situation for you, people who got their money on point, they just opt out, they stay away. Now, if you are looking to, build your credit score, I know for some people that's a reason they want to have one. There are credit builder cards. So they're a type of credit card that they work like a debit card. So you prepay into them and then you can use them. So they help with building your credit score, but without the sort of risk with spending habits that you can have with that. Like, feel free to research. There's a lot of information and you can find on there ones that you can start small and you can build your credit with them without necessarily, putting yourself at risk of overspending when you don't want to. So they recognize that and they stay away from stuff that doesn't work for them. And then let me see. So that was point number 4. The final point number 5. This is about how they see it. So the people that make it work, the way they think about it is different. They think about having that budget spending plan, whatever you want to call it, as more of a life jacket than a straight jacket. So they see it as something that is there to support them, to help them, rather than something that is just there to tell them no or to beat them over the head with it. They actually see it as something that is working with them. And I think that's so important, because that's where it all starts from. Like, how you're thinking about it is going to impact whether you're going to have one in the first place and then whether you're going to stick with it. Which is why on my 12-week program that I'm developing, one of the first things that I cover is the mindset and the why and how you think about it, because that's so important. If you're coming at it from a what's the word, combative point of view, that's already setting it up to fail. So they think about it different, and that's how they make it work. So that was point number 5. A bit of a recap, like I said, 5 items. So 5 things that people who their budget works for them, their money works for them, 5 things that they do. This is not an exhaustive list, of course, So number 1, they recognize the difference between when they're being sold to versus is something that they actually need. So they understand that you can't save money by spending money you don't need, and so they're wise to sales tactics and sales tricks, and stay away from that. And then the second thing is that they have emergency funds, so they know that things come up, they know that things can break down, car, boiler, whatever, and they plan for that and they handle it, and it doesn't take them off course or knock their confidence. Point number 3, they plan self-care into that, because they know that feeling of it's not all a drag. I'm actually a part of this is I have a space, I have the time to look after myself. That's planned into it, and so they don't go off the rails and just one day lose it and blow everything. Point number 4, they recognize if credit cards are not something that is safe for them to use. Yeah, safe, the word. They stay away from it and absolutely fine with it. Or if they are choosing to use it, they have a good rule of thumb and are very aware of how they use it. And then point number 5, they have the right mindset about it, the way they approach it. They see it as something that is there for them, to support them, rather than something that's there to just constrict them and say no and make things hard. So those were the 5 points. Feel free to add any on there that you have on the list as well. Let's chat about it. Like I said, last week we talked about why budgets fail, so I guess the opposite of that would help as well. So go ahead and watch that if you haven't. And yeah, that was it. I will see you again next week. Thanks for the likes, guys. Have a good rest of the week, and hope you don't get the sniffles like I do. I'm glad I didn't cough or sneeze halfway through. I was so worried that was going to happen. All right, take care. Bye.